Good to see you guys. Sorry about that. It's one of those deals my mom makes me wear my retainer, so I have to get it all straightened out. Great to see you guys. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for being here. It's incredible how our attendance went up as soon as football was done. What's going on there? It's interesting. So I don't know. I know the Super Bowl's coming up. I'm kind of excited, but I kind of got deflated. You know what I'm saying? It's just not the same. Okay. Just kidding, all you Boston fans, all you Patriot fans, all three of you. And so we want to apologize to you. So glad you guys are here. No, thanks, seriously, though. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you being a part of our services today. I've been doing a little traveling, and so I'm kind of like, a little out of it because we got in late last night from the Ozarks. Really pretty, by the way. Gorgeous there. So I had a good time. Had a great church there, a brand new church, speaking on relationships. And so glad to be here. Just glad to be talking today on a subject that I think hits all of us. We're talking today about temptation, how to overcome temptation, because all of us are impacted by temptation. I heard about this guy, this is years ago. He was in the service, and he was stationed in the South Pacific. And so he wrote a letter to his wife, and he said, "Hey, honey, I just want you to know," they were newly married, by the way, only like a month before he was shipped out. He wrote a letter and said, "Honey, I love you. I miss you so much. I'm just going to be honest with you. I want you to know that there's a lot of really young, pretty native girls running around here, and there's a lot of temptation. So just be praying for me." So she writes a letter back, says, "I understand. I really appreciate you telling me that. Thank you for being honest with me. In the care package I sent you, I included a harmonica and a little get started book. And so why don't you focus your attention on learning how to play the harmonica instead of all those girls," right? So a couple years go by, and they've been writing back and forth. Finally, he gets shipped back home. He sees his wife. He embraces her. He's like, "Oh, it's so great to see you again." They're catching up. And he says, "Baby, I'm just dying to get you in the bedroom to make love to you. It's just been so long." She says, "Before we do that, I'd like to hear a song on your harmonica." Temptation is a real deal. It happens. I don't care who you are. There's no age that you are exempt from this. I mean, now everyone has different temptations, but we all face some kind of temptation. Maybe for you it's lust. Maybe for you it's food. Maybe for you it's shopping. Maybe for you it's a temptation to stay angry at someone. The temptation to gossip. I don't know what the temptation is for you, but we all face temptations in our lives. Right now I'm about to face a huge one because they're opening a Dunkin' Donuts near me. This is a huge temptation for me. So anyways, I don't know what your temptation is, but all of us have temptations in our lives. And so how do you learn to overcome those temptations? Let's talk about that today. I want to say hello to all of our campuses real quick. Let's give all of our campuses a hand. Thanks for being a part of our services today. Some common temptations are lust, greed, shopping, really just materialism, bad foods, gossip, alcohol, and drugs. I mean, those are just some common ones, but it could be something simple. It could be something that literally your life is on the edge, and at any moment, if something came out, it could be very destructive for you. And so I'm not sure how serious this is for you, but all of us face temptation in our lives. I had a buddy that went to a conference one time, and it was a college conference, a lot of college students everywhere, national conference. And at night, they had these real famous speakers, that like had written a bunch of books and traveled and that kind of stuff, and they spoke at night. But during the morning sessions, they had just some great teachers that weren't so well known. And one of them was this older guy. He was in his 80s, and he was a retired missionary. And they did like a Q&A, and he said he'd never forget at one point in the Q&A, a young man stood up, raised his hand, and said, "I just have to ask you a question." He was talking to this older guy, trying to get his wisdom. He said, "Like, at what age is lust finally no longer an issue?" And the guy said to him, "Sometime after 85. Like, oh man, that's not encouraging, Temptation does not seem to go away. In fact, in today's world, it seems to be multiplying. It seems to be everywhere now. Now you've got not only temptation when you leave your home, but you got more temptation probably in your home with the internet and with cable and all these different channels. And it's just crazy now how much access kids have. And, a lot of us are growing up on the internet. And so, it's crazy access. So how do you take control of those temptations that we all face? 2 Samuel 11, verse 1 is where we're going to start today. We're talking about David. David was a guy who was a great man of God. He was called a man after God's own heart. But it's the same guy who fell into one of the greatest and most common temptations, the temptation to cheat. And he became an adulterer and ultimately a murderer. It's unbelievable that he did this, because this is a guy who was really in love with the Lord, honored God with his life, and yet had massive sin in his life too. And so it just also gives hope to all of us who think like, man, I could never be used of God. God can't have great things for me because of how I am or what I've done. And look at what God's done with David. And even in the midst of this, God restored David. And so he can restore you too. But I want to encourage you that there's no good use in restoring if you're going to fall right back into it again. Right? And so the whole point of being restored is then, as Jesus told the woman who was caught in adultery, go and sin no more. Like, quit doing this. Let's not go back here and do this again, right? So how do you get out of that cycle of sin where you're kind of white-knuckling, I'm going to hold on, I'm not going to fall in this again, and all of a sudden, boom, you fall into it again, and you feel really bad. Oh, Lord, forgive me, please forgive me, I feel so bad. And then you do really good for a while, and all of a sudden, boom, you fall back into it, and it becomes this cycle, this vicious cycle in your life. How do you break that cycle? How do you overcome temptation? Let's look at some simple principles that we can all apply to our lives to make temptation rather easy to overcome. Believe it or not, I believe you can get there. Check it out. 2 Samuel 11, verse 1. It says, in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. Okay, here's the first thing that I want to warn you about that's really pretty simple, but we forget to do this. Number one, focus on your goals and get or stay accountable to someone who loves you. David normally every spring went with his guys, with his homies, with his crew, and they would go and fight wars. That's how he became a king. That's how he became so great and so well known, was because of his military prowess, his ability to fight. This guy was a warrior at heart. And so he went with his crew, with his guys. There was built-in accountability with his guys. They were off doing the things God wanted them to do. They were conquering and taking new land, taking new territories. And so it's no wonder he had built-in accountability, because he was also so busy doing the things he should have been doing, he didn't have time to get involved in things he shouldn't be involved in. And what happens typically is when we have too much time on our hands, and when we're not accountable to other people that love us, then it's just too easy to fall into stupid stuff. You know, my question for you is there anyone asking you about that particular weakness you have? Does anyone ever ask you, how you doing on that? Because if no one's asking you how you're doing, then you probably have a whole other life going on that no one knows about. And what happens is you begin to live two separate lives, and no one's happy doing that. It destroys you. So there's a better way to live, and the better way to live is to be going for your goals and your dreams and pursuing the things of God in your life. And that way, otherwise, if you don't go for the higher yes, you'll fall into the lower yeses. You'll say yes to the dumb stuff rather than saying yes to the good stuff. Does that make sense? So the first thing, believe it or not, the best way I know to overcome temptation is to be doing the right things. And the right things means pursuing what God has put on your heart to do. There's certain things that motivate and drive you that you were built to do. Do those things. If you're busy doing those things, you just don't have time to get involved in the wrong things. I got a friend one time, we were talking because a buddy of ours had fallen into an adulterous relationship, and my friend said, he said, I don't have time to do that. And I was like, you're right, I don't either. We're just busy doing good things. I literally don't have time. You know, my biggest issue, if someone were to approach me and want to get me involved in something wrong, I'd be like, I don't have time to do that. I'm too busy trying to do the things God has for me in my life, and you should be the same way, doing the right thing, just busy honoring God and going for your goals and going for your dreams. And the other thing, too, you see here in the Scripture is that David was with his crew. He was with his guys. I want to challenge you to get involved in a small group. One of the best ways to stay away from temptation is to be around healthy individuals who are trying to honor God. And so this is the power of our small groups. In fact, if you have not signed up to be a small group leader, I want to challenge you to do so. At all of our campuses right now, I want to challenge you to commit to this. In fact, here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to break it down right now. And in this room, and as well as the other rooms right now, I want to ask our campus pastors or one of the staff in the room to kind of look around and engage when you see someone do this. But if you are challenged in this moment to be a small group leader, some of you right now have been thinking, I really want to grow in my faith and take a next step in my faith. Well, then become a small group leader right now. So right now in this moment, if you're saying, I'm not currently leading a small group, but I'm willing, would you slip your hand in the air right now? I'm hoping we get 10 or 20 hands right now. Hold them high. Hold them high. Thank you. Look at these hands going up. Hold them high. Hold them high. Give these people a hand right now. This is a big step of faith they're making. Look at that. Right there. Boom. All of our campus right now, hold your hand high. Every campus. Come on, Rodfield. Come on, Alice. Come on right now. Someone needs to hold up that hand in Beeville. Hold those hands up right now. All of our campus right now, Padre Island right now, West Side, wherever you are, hold your hand up and say, I'm willing to lead a small group. I'm willing to do it. I didn't say you have to have your life together. I didn't say you have to be perfect. Doesn't mean you have to be a Christian for the last 60 years. Nothing like that. You just have to say, I'm going to love people, and I'm willing to lead a group. Praise God. Let's give all these people a hand who are committing to leading groups. Thank you for that. That's huge. Do us a favor after we dismiss. Just go out into the atrium, find someone at the Get Connected booth or the information booth and let them know your name and your information. We'll get you signed up to lead a small group. We'd love to have you do that. Number one is to focus on your goals and get or stay accountable to someone who loves you. So all his guys that he would be accountable to are all off at war. The only one who's not there is David. That's a huge mistake to make. Too much time on your hands will lead to problems. This is why guys go on business trips and they get home after working all day, wherever they are, making a presentation, whatever they're doing, they go to the hotel, they eat dinner, and then they're bored for 6 hours. No wonder they get into trouble. There's nothing to do. They're sitting around. They're not in a normal environments. By the way, take a cue from the NFL on this one, that the teams that make it to the Super Bowl, you have to learn to win on the road. And so I want to challenge the men here that when you're traveling, you got to learn to win on the road and not fall apart on the road when you're traveling. It's a big deal. A lot of guys, that's when they end up doing stupid things. Girls too, it goes both ways. And so it's a big deal that we learn to win on the road. So I want to challenge you to, get accountable. Tell someone, hey, I'm about to go and travel for 3 days. I got a business trip, going to this conference in Vegas, going to a conference in New York City, going to LA, wherever you're going, and just tell someone, hey, I'm going to be there for 3 days. Would you just ask me what I watched, what I did, what I was up to? Just ask me when I get back. Just that little snippet, that one little line right there saves so many people from stupid things. And so it's as simple as that. Or maybe you say, hey, I'm about to go to this big conference, and a bunch of guys from my staff are going, and normally they always want to go out afterwards to places I don't need to be going. And so I just want you to ask me, did you ask to be dropped off at the hotel, before they go out to those places, right? And so it's just something as simple as that. Or, dare I say, you be the person in the car who says, hey, instead of going there and then feeling guilty for the next 6 weeks at home, why don't we all go bowling? And then someone will go, oh. But then the other guys, because they're all being a bunch of wusses, will go, okay, that sounds better. Because normally it's one ringleader getting them all to do something stupid. And so if you just steer that in the right direction, it can change everything. So something as simple as that makes all the difference in the world. So focus on your goals, stay accountable. It's a big deal. Look what happens next. David does this. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful. And so David is up on the roof. Now, I got to be honest with you. I don't think David stumbled along across this. I don't buy that, because I think David was too much of a leader for this to be an accident. I think David knew exactly what he was going to do. And so going up to the rooftop at midnight for David is like you turn on the TV if you got movie channels in your home or in a hotel room. You know it's on them. Come on, give me a break. We're not dumb. The first time you were dumb, you're not dumb anymore. Does that make sense? And so that's what was going on, or going out, or if you hop in the car and say, I'm just going to go get a Coke real quick down the street. No, you're not. You're going to go because you know where your dealer lives. That's what's really going on. And you can tell yourself you're going to go get a Coke, but you're not. You'll end up turning down another street rather than the street you should be going down. And so that's what's going on there. So we have a tendency, I've discovered this in people, I've been dealing with this virtually my entire adult life as a pastor, trying to help people through stuff. We are really good at lying to ourselves. And so that's probably David's doing. I'm just going to go up and just get a breath of fresh air. Oh, I'm sure you are, David, as you walk around and look around, And so, and then all of a sudden, he has the highest point in all the land because he's in the castle, he's in the palace. So his view is higher, and everyone always bathed on the roof. That was the most private area for people. So they would bathe on the roof at night. They would have these high walls, and so you think no one's seen. The only thing higher would be the palace. So David knew he had access, and so I'm sure David was taking advantage of that. I've actually had some ladies tell me that maybe Bathsheba was taking advantage of it. Could have been the case. I don't know. I mean, we don't really know that to be the case, but clearly David was in the wrong, but maybe, just maybe, I taught this a few years ago, and some of the ladies told me, because apparently I taught it like Bathsheba was this big victim, and some ladies came to me and they said, she may not have been the victim like you think. She may have known exactly what she was doing, because there are some women who know what they're doing and put themselves in harm's way on purpose. How many ladies know what I'm talking about right now, that you see that women that see it in other women before men do? We're a little clueless on that. And so, I ain't saying she a gold digger, but she wasn't with no broke king, that's all I'm saying. So, who knows? All right, so what does this mean? Number 2, we need to create an off-limits locations list. We need to create an off-limits locations list. What that means is there's certain places that you just don't go. There's certain places that you just know, I'm just not going to go there. And here's the thing. People always say this to me when I talk about this. They go, you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. I went to this club. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't say you did. You may have gone to the club, you may have gone to the bar and did nothing wrong. You weren't doing anything wrong, you were just doing something stupid. In other words, you're right. You can go and sit there and do nothing wrong. But everyone around you is doing wrong things. And so if you happen to be the one saint for the moment, congratulations, but you're a stupid saint because you're putting yourself around it, which means eventually you'll partake in it. Does that make sense? I mean, so I went to the party. It's like the high school students. So I went to the party, but I didn't drink and I wasn't doing drugs. I know they were doing it in the back, but I didn't do that. But if you keep going, eventually you'll do those things. And so that's why you can't put yourself in harm's way. And so that's why location matters. Where you go, it's a big deal. And so I want to encourage you to make an off-limits location list. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily wrong. It means it's wrong for you. If you know yourself, you know your own weaknesses, there's certain places you just can't go, don't go. If you're like, you know what? If you're an alcoholic, there's certain restaurants you go to because they don't have a bar, versus some people go to restaurants with bars in them. It's not a big deal. Virtually every restaurant I go to has a bar in it. Not because I don't go sit in the bar, but I mean, Chili's has a bar in it. You know, most Mexican food places have a bar in it. And so, but I don't go in there, but if that's a struggle for you, if you're an alcoholic, you need to admit that and say, I'm just not going to go there. I'm going to go eat at Subway where there's no bar. You know? There's certain places you just go and certain places you don't go. And then one day when you're stronger and it's not a big deal for you to go to a Bennigan's or a Chili's, great. You know, don't go sit in the bar area. I wouldn't do that. But, you know, if it's not like the other day, my boys wanted to watch a game and it was in the bar area, and so we sat in the bar. We didn't sit at the bar. We sat in the bar area, a table near it, so we could watch the game. That's not really a big deal to me. So it wasn't a problem, but that doesn't mean it may not be an issue for you. If that's an issue for you, don't do it. So it's different for everyone. If going to a pool is a problem, if you're like, man, I'm just really struggling with my eyes right now, then don't be a lifeguard, you know? Don't go to the pool if that's a problem. You know? And so I don't know what the issue would be for you, but you've got to know what that issue and just learn to avoid it and have some off-limits locations lists. And so just certain places you just don't go. One time, my wife and I, we took our kids on a Caribbean vacation. It was a really nice time, and I think we were just there for like a day. It was like I think we were on a boat, and I think we had like a day off of the boat kind of thing, and a little island. So we're there. And so we weren't thinking anything of it. We had our kids with us. And so we went to this beach, and we were there to hang out. And when we got there, I learned after a few minutes of being there that clearly it was a clothing optional beach. Didn't know that when we got there until we got there. Can I just say something about that, by the way? That it's always the people who have no business not wearing clothes that take off their clothes. You know what I'm talking about? Excuse me, Grandma. What are you doing? I'm just saying. Okay, so anyway, whole nother point there. Sorry. I'm just saying, it's just not, it's not normally Adonis and his wife. It's not who's taking off their clothes. I'm just telling you right now, so pretty scary. Okay, but it was so funny. We're walking along, and Mason was really little at the time. He's like 6 or 7. This is years ago. And so we didn't want to see this, and we're like, oh, man, I didn't want to see it. I mean, I really didn't want to see it, trust me. But I was like, oh, wow. And Jessica was like, are you okay? And I was like, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. No temptation, I promise you. But my son, he's like 6, and he's old enough to kind of know what's going on. And so we're walking along, we're like, hey, Mason, check it out. We point in the opposite direction. He's just looking, what? As we walk right by this lady. I mean, he never even noticed. It was great. So, but you know what? That's important that we learn just to have off-limit locations, things you don't go to, things you don't look at. And so that's a big deal. So you need to have some off-limits locations. Jesus put it this way, Matthew 6:13. He said this, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. So Jesus' secret to getting away from temptation was not to overcoming temptation was not to go near it. It's really easy to overcome temptation you're never near. Does that make sense? It's really not that hard. I hear people tell me, but it's so hard when I'm up in the club and this girl's all up on me and dancing. Yeah, don't do that. That would be probably difficult to overcome for you, I'm pretty sure. If you're in the club and someone's smashed against you, how about you not do that? It's a lot easier to overcome it if that's not going on, all right? So, don't go to the club, right? The club, by the way, that's how you say that. I'm so street, I know. Like I know, I would have no idea what to do in the club. Anyway, that's a whole other issue. But so create off-limits locations lists. That's a big deal. I heard about this lady. She ran a girls' school. She was a dean of the women's college. And so she got a lot of ladies together one time. And she goes, now, girls, listen. She goes, there's temptation everywhere. You got to learn to avoid it. And always ask yourself this one question. Is an hour of pleasure worth a lifetime of shame? And the girl in the back stood up and said, how do you make it last an hour? She was like, that's not the point. If I have to explain that, I'm not going to go into that. All right, so the deal is that we need to create off-limits locations. I get myself in trouble in these sermons all the time. I don't know why I do this, so crazy. Okay, 1 Samuel chapter 11, verse 3 goes on to say this. And David sent someone to find out about her. So he sees her from his rooftop. He sees this beautiful woman. She's bathing. He's like, whoa, check her out. He's like freaking out. She's beautiful. And so, he says, hey, I want to meet her. It says, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, isn't this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? That is a huge hint. Basically, they're saying this is some servant of David, and he's thinking, I can't call him out. He's the king. So he says, isn't that Uriah the Hittite? You know Uriah, the one who's fighting for you right now? Isn't that his wife? This is like, this guy is basically saying it, but not saying it like saying, I'm pleading with you, king, not to do this. Please do not do this. You know, I've discovered that long before someone falls into something, they've been warned. Maybe today, God is saying to you, please do not do this. Please do not destroy your life by making this decision. So maybe today, I know it got serious. Maybe today God's trying to say, please stop. I'm pleading with you. I love you enough to intervene and say, don't go there. It'll destroy you. It will. So you just got to avoid it. It's a big deal. And so he basically asks about her. This guy says, yeah, that's Uriah the Hittite's wife. Then David sends messengers to get her. This is when he crosses the line. I mean, it's bad enough he saw her naked, but then he asked about her, and then what's the next thing? He goes all in. Then he sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. She had purified herself from her uncleanness, and she went back home. And so basically, at this point, number 3, what we can learn from this is we need to intentionally limit our access. David did not do this. He blew right through his limitations. But we need to learn not to do this. We have to intentionally limit our access. Now, let me talk about this. This is going to be a little sensitive right now, but I got to go here, okay? In our world today, we live in a world without boundaries. I've just seen this. People just don't have boundaries today. They will say anything to you. People don't even know you. They will do anything. It's crazy. And the bottom line is that we grew up in a world without boundaries because most of us nowadays grew up on the internet. And if you had access to the internet at all in your life, that you know that you can click anything, type in anything, and see it in an instant. And so the bottom line is that we've had access to unbelievable stuff. In fact, our children have grown up in it. Hopefully, they have not seen a whole lot because you've protected them. But if you've never had a conversation with them about this, I can almost guarantee you that what you're assuming they haven't seen, I would actually assume they have seen it. Forgive me for being that way. I'm not trying to call your kids out. I'm just telling you, kids are curious. And at the end of the day, they're no different than you. They're just younger, which means they're less experienced. And if you on your own click it, then what will they do? So the bottom line is that we have got tremendous amounts of access, and most of the access is the wrong data, not the right data. It's the wrong stuff. And so I want to warn you on something that may sound really simple, but you can actually protect your kids in all kinds of ways and still not be doing your job as a parent by letting just any kind of media come into your home. And it's harder today because now it used to be that your internet provider, you just set it up online, you just click here, and everything's limited. Well, now everything has the internet. Phones have it. All these TVs now come with built-in internet in the TV. I mean, it's like every single thing now has access, and so we have to train our kids just to choose not to look at it now instead of just limiting them. Does that make sense? It used to be all to set up all these firewalls. That's not even possible now. Now they got a computer in their pocket by age 12. So the bottom line is you have to teach them, let me tell you why you do not need to click on this. Let me tell you why when your friend pulls out their iPad at lunch and shows you something, you turn away. Because what your friend doesn't know is it's going to destroy them. But you have parents who tell you this. Do not look at that stuff. It will eat your lunch. It will destroy you. It will not be healthy for you. It will mess you up. It really will. Porn is destroying lives by the hundreds of thousands a day. I'm seeing this all the time, guys. I'm just telling you right now, it's unbelievable. And the men who think, and mainly it's men, not always, I know women are into this too sometimes, but mainly men, honestly, you know the studies have proven, forgive me for being a little crass, I'm just going to put it out there. You know what the studies have proven that loads and loads of pornography do? They make you impotent. How funny is that? Wow, that's the opposite of what we were hoping for. That's the lie that the devil wants to tell you. The more access you get, the more desensitized you get, the less turned on you get, the more perverse you have to go to even get turned on. And this is why you end up going and seeing things you never in a million years thought you'd go to. This is how a respectable person in the community does things that you never dreamed they would do. It's because they started down a road and they never limited themselves. We've got to cut off our own access. And so intentionally limit your access. Maybe for you, limiting your access means certain people you don't go hang out with because you thought they were just your friend, but let's be honest, they're not just a friend, they're a friend who brings you weed. They're a friend who gets high with you. They're a friend who, when you hang out with them, they take you to a club. They're a friend that when you get together, that friend has benefits that you think are benefits that are actually costing you your life. They're costing you the joy God has for you. They're holding you back, not helping you. So I want to challenge you to limit your access to certain people until you become strong. Limit your access to certain places. Limit your access to certain things you don't view, certain things you don't read. We have to learn to do that. And before women that you elbow your man and bruise his rib cage today on the whole porn thing, if you're reading 50 Shades of Grey, that's porn. That's girl porn. That's all that is. It's just as bad. It destroys you. It destroys your relationships. Why isn't he more like so-and-so? Because that's a book. It's not even real. It's ridiculous. And so you got to be careful of that kind of stuff. And those who, I don't read those kind of magazines. I just have Maxim. Oh, you mean what I call pre-porn? That's all that is. Well, my son just have a couple posters on the wall. They're just bikinis. Oh, pre-porn. That's what that is. We got to be careful. Let's just be more honest. Let's intentionally limit ourselves. Guys, this may sound ridiculous to you, but I'm just telling you, you've got to be careful because this stuff is going on and it's destroying lives by the dozens. Next week's message, by the way, don't miss it. I'm talking about how to take control of your mind. It'll really help in this area a lot. How do you actually take control of your thoughts instead of letting your thoughts just run wild? And so be sure to be here next week as we talk about that. But we've got to intentionally limit our access. There's just certain places I just don't go. I just don't. Certain places you won't see me going. Which, again, some people say, well, that's ridiculous. I don't want to limit my life. I'm not limiting my life. Actually, my life is very unlimited because I haven't screwed up in these certain areas to limit me. Again, some people say, well, it's not illegal to go to those places. It's not illegal. It's perfectly legal to destroy your life in our country. It's perfectly legal if you destroy yourself. You go ahead. I didn't talk about whether this is legal. I mean, sure, it's legal. It's just stupid. So we got to take a harder, closer look at that and really learn what's really going on there because it actually is not healthy. And the TV will tell you all kinds of lies. Like the constant lie of television is if you're married, then you're not having sex ever, and if you're single, you're always sleeping with someone. Have you noticed that? That's the constant lie of TV. It's just over and over and over again when all studies prove that single people have sex about a fourth of the amount of time that someone who's married and faithful has. A fourth. So don't listen to that lie. All the actual stats prove that. And what's really funny, by the way, is that the secular studies are proving this. These aren't Christian studies going on. In fact, what I thought was interesting was that the most satisfied women sexually had a high degree of religiosity. So in other words, the closer you are to God, the more satisfied you are in the bedroom. So you're not going to hear that on TV. You're not going to see that on CNN. They're not going to tell you those things because it doesn't sell well. But that's the reality. So we need to look closely at those kind of things. I'm not trying to pick on the whole sex issue. Again, maybe alcohol or drugs are a struggle for you. Maybe it's food. Food's a huge problem. And our city was ranked a couple years back as the fattest city in America. That is not something to be proud of. And so that's a reality too. Maybe for you, food really is not just food. Food is an escape. You drown your sorrows in Bluebell. You know what I'm saying? Somehow we think we're going to be satisfied with enough tacos, which I have gone for that myself several times. But it doesn't do it. So, anyways, we need to intentionally limit our access. It really is a big deal. Okay, check out what happens next. Here's what happens. Let me just shorten the story a little bit here. But David basically is freaking out because he gets a note from Bathsheba, I guess several months later when she says, I'm pregnant. And he's like, you've got to be kidding me, right? So he brings Uriah home from the war thinking he'll sleep with her, and then he'll assume it's his kid. He refuses to sleep with his wife. He's like, how can I do that, king, when all my men are fighting for you, and I refuse to sleep with my wife? He's like, oh, great, this guy has character. Unbelievable, right? So then he gets him drunk, thinking now he'll sleep with his wife. Still doesn't. Finally, he sends a letter, a closed, sealed letter, to give to the commander with Uriah. He says, Uriah, please take this to your commander and go back to the war. Uriah is carrying his own death certificate. Inside the sealed letter, it says, please put Uriah on the front line, then pull all the men back so he dies. So he is literally carrying his own death certificate. Now, before you think, how in the world could David go this far down this wormhole, this far down the rabbit hole? How in the world do you go that far into your sin? Oh, that's easy. The same way you and I go far down the road with our sin. It's called secrecy. The only thing that leads us to do things we never do is when we don't tell anybody. But if you have someone holding you accountable regularly, you won't go down that road. That's how that happens. I could never tell my wife that I was flirting with a girl at the office. I could never tell her. Awesome. If you don't tell her, the flirting will increase. If you don't tell her, it's going to go from flirting to a kiss. If you don't tell her, it's going to go from flirting to a kiss to groping and who knows what else. And if you don't tell her, you're going to find yourself in a hotel room thinking, how in the world did this happen? I'll tell you how it happened. You didn't tell her. That's how you go down that trail. Does this make sense? So the answer, wow, it's quiet in here. The answer number 4 is never covered up with lies. Never covered up with lies. The answer should have been, when David was on the rooftop, was to pull one of his guys in who did stay home and say, hey, I need to talk to you. Get your gear up. I need to go to war. Why? Well, I was up on the roof, and I saw this girl, and I don't want anything to happen. I want to be a man of honor. I shouldn't have even seen it. Wow, King, this is kind of awkward. Yeah, I know it is, but I got to tell you, because I want you to ask me tomorrow night if I did it again. Done. Wouldn't have happened again after that. Because then that guy would have walked by the king's office and said, hey, David, how you doing? We okay? They'd been like, okay. Guys, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? We kind of do that with each other, right? I have guys come to me and go, hey, Pastor, I want you to know, I'm going on a business trip next week. I just want you to know about it. And I'm like, you got it. And I know what that means. Code word for next week when I see you at church, I'm going to go, how was your trip? Which means, were you stupid or were you smart? And they'll go, I did good. Awesome. Glad to hear it. Just a little code word. I recommend you do that. You know, if there's an area that you have a weakness in, that you have a struggle in, get some accountability in that particular area. It's critical. And get it to someone who will really hold you accountable, not your sin buddy. Don't do that. Like, oh, man, I'm going to call my buddy I do weed with, and we're going to be accountable to each other. Bad idea. Bad idea. It'd be like, yeah, we got to stop this, man. We got to stop this. Yeah, it's not getting you where you want to go. That was acting, by the way. I have no actual experience with that. Totally acting. Yeah. Never covered up with lies. That's a big deal. Lies make it worse. Sin lives in secrecy, and truth lives in openness. Catch that? So the best way, believe it or not, for you to overcome your struggles is to tell someone. Again, some of you right now are like, you are crazy if you think I'm going to go tell someone what I'm up to. Some people say this to me. They say, in the name of self-preservation, I can't tell anyone. I would actually say, in the name of self-preservation, you better tell someone, or it's going to get way worse. So you got to tell someone now. Tell someone before it goes really, really, really bad. Oh, I'm not going to tell anybody that I have a debt problem because then I'll look foolish to them. Well, you know what looks more foolish? Bankruptcy. So you may want to tell someone. Well, I don't want to tell anybody that I've got this credit card debt. That's a little embarrassing. You know what's more embarrassing is when you're with your buddy at dinner and you walk back out to your car, drive him home, and someone towed your car away because you hadn't paid your payments in 4 months. That's more embarrassing. It's better just to go and tell someone now, hey, I'm really struggling. Why? Because I'm an idiot. I keep going to the mall and just going crazy. What? Yeah, so I've got all these clothes and I can't even pay my electric bill. Okay, let's rein this in. Let's get a little accountability. Let's talk about this. And so accountability changes everything. I want to share a couple more scripture and I'll close up. Proverbs 29, verse 18 is a verse I want to encourage you to write down. It's not in your notes. Would you please write that down? Proverbs 29, 18 in the NIV says, where there is no revelation, people cast off restraint. Here's what that means. Another translation says, where there is no vision, people perish. Where there is no revelation means when God hasn't spoken to you about what he has for you, you cast off restraint. You don't hold back. Here's what that means. If I don't have the vision that I'm going to go to college, then I don't care about my grades in high school. But if I have a vision to go to college, I don't cast off restraint. I don't throw restraint to the wind. In other words, like when someone says, hey, let's go hang out and have a good time and forget studying. If I don't think I'm going to college, I'm like, sure. If I want to go to college, I'm like, I can't. I got to study. I got to get this grade up. Why? Because I got to have these kind of grades to get into that college. So when I have a vision, it gives me restraint. It's like the people who are dieting, that are really good at dieting, they're like, I'm dropping weight. What's going on? They're dropping weight because they have what? They got a weigh-in coming up. In other words, they have some event. They're like, oh, I'm getting in good shape. Why? Because I got a reunion. Because I got a big event. Because I'm doing this speaking gig. Because I'm going to be in front of the whole company doing a talk. Or because I got this big date coming up. Or whatever it is for you. And so guess what? All of a sudden you say no to all that bad food because you have something to look forward to. In other words, when you have a vision of your future, you're willing to walk away from things that are not good. What's so important in your life to happen that it keeps you on the straight and narrow? Because when you have a big vision, it gives you restraint. God told Moses this in Exodus chapter 27, verse 8. He said, build it just as you were shown on the mountain. Some of you need to go up to the mountain and hear from God. What I mean by that is you need to have a spiritual moment where you say, God, what is your plan for my life? Because you've been down in the valley doing stupid stuff. It's time to go up to the mountain and hear from God. But when you hear from God on the mountain, this is what I recommend. When you walk back down the mountain to live out those plans that God gives you, walk down the opposite side of the mountain. Don't go near those old friends and those old places. And just get busy doing what God told you to do. Does that make sense? Because here's what I know about sin. Most of our habits that are destroying our lives are really an escape. And what most of us are really running from is the truth. And the truth is, many of us are doing dumb things, taking that hit, sleeping with the wrong person, going to certain places, viewing certain things that we know destroy us. But the reason we're doing those escapes is because we're escaping the truth. And the truth is, we're not living our best life. God has big plans for you. The answer is not to entertain yourself to death. The answer is to get started on the things that matter most to you. And then you don't have to escape anything. Does that make sense? God does something good for you. Would you bow your heads with me? Every head bowed, every eye closed. As you take a moment to bow your heads, I want to tell you that your future is worth overcoming this. Whatever you're dealing with, whatever you're struggling with, your future is worth overcoming it. Right now in this prayer time, would you just say to God, God, forgive me once and for all for these stupid things I've done. And Lord, now help me to break the cycle of this by living differently, by taking this little sheet of paper with these notes on it and applying this to my life, by having some off-limits places, some no-access rules, by getting some accountability, and by living the life you called me to. Help me now, Lord, to spend my time doing the things that matter the most. Thank you for your forgiveness. Thank you for a fresh start today. With your head bowed and your eyes closed, if you never trusted Christ before, God sent his son Jesus to die on the cross for you and for me, to pay the price for all of our sins, all the things we've done wrong. Then Jesus rose again from the grave, proving that he's God. Now he waits for you and me to individually receive him. You can pray and receive Christ right now by praying this very simple prayer with me. You can say, Dear Jesus, I realize I need you in my life. I believe you died on the cross for my sins, and I believe you rose again from the grave, proving that you're God. And now I ask you, I invite you to come into my heart, come into my life, change me from within, be my Lord, and be my Savior. Thank you, Jesus, for saving me. In Jesus' name, amen. Isn't God good? His word is so true.